And we're live. We're live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this DevSecOps community call. Today, we're going to talk about automating security checkpoints in your pipeline at the age of AI. I'm Gerald, and I lead the DevSecOps community powered by Sneak, and I'm very glad to host you today. So we got many RSVPs for this event today. So please feel free to say hi in the chat. Just drop us a line and tell us where you're joining from. And please remember, this is a live discussion with experts. Let me actually pull them on stage. It's going to be more fun with the three of us. Hey, Olaf. Hey, Brett. So yeah, our experts are here. So feel free to drop a line in the chat, say hi, and ask any questions you might have or share your thoughts, okay? So, well, this event is brought to you by DevSecOps. Let me do a bit of advertisement here. Okay, you can join us on sneak.io/community. DevSecOps is one of world's leading DevSecOps communities. It's powered by Sneak. We have a great Discord server where you can hang out and chat. We have a bunch of local chapters for real-life meetups, beer and pizza. We have a yearly flagship event, which you can attend as well. So feel free to join us. We're glad to welcome you anytime. Okay, let's set some context real quick and get this started. So why are we talking about this topic? Well, you all know you're probably aware of the 6 pillars of DevSecOps as they were defined by the Cloud Security Alliance. If you're not aware, here's a link for you to visit. Feel free to get there, and you'll see some research work on the core pillars of DevSecOps. Super interesting readings for you folks. But basically, those pillars goes like this. I'm just going to go through the list. I'm not going into details, but basically it's collective responsibility, collaboration and integration, pragmatic implementation. Reading my list now: bridging compliance and development, measure, monitor, report, and action, and automation. Automation is actually the fifth of the 6 pillars, but I put it last for the sake of our discussion today. And indeed, automation is critical. Automation is critical because obviously it provides efficiency, right? It allows everyone to focus on delivering value instead of repeating manual tasks and repetitive tasks. It's also a great way to avoid mistakes, especially in complex environments. So we know that automation and automating security checkpoints in your pipeline is key, but we're also entering in an era now, or a period where we're moving away from regular coding, moving into AI-assisted coding with coding assistants, or even AI-accelerated DevSecOps. The next step for us and for our industry is actually what is called AI-native software development with agentic powered interactions between the components of your SDLC. So we got a lot of things to cover today together. We're going to cover the basics. What's a pipeline? Why do you need it? Where and how to implement security checks? What you should be looking for, and then we'll take a look at the future. What's the impact of the current state of AI adoption on your pipelines, especially in an agentic powered world. What does it mean in terms of, authentication, permission, a bunch of stuff like that. So that's things that we're going to discuss. What are the best practices to keep in mind? And to talk about that, I'm very glad to welcome 2 experts on stage. Hey, folks, Brett Smith and Olaf Molenveld. Yeah. Good to have you on the show with me today, folks. Thank you so much for joining. Brett, you're a distinguished software developer at SAS. You've got a background in engineering and sysadmin, which means that you're familiar with the beeping sounds of pager duty, especially on Saturday nights. You're a Sneak ambassador. You gave a bunch of talks. You're often on stage, one of which I love particularly. It's called Secure the AI and Protect the Electric Ship. It's actually a great reference to a novel. You give a lot of very interesting insights in this one. And yeah, we are very glad to welcome you. And last but not least, you like it when people call you Smitty.
Yeah.
Did I forget anything?
No. Friends can call me Smitty. The rest of you guys, are users. So.
Olaf. Yeah, Olaf, good to have you too. You're a technology advisor at CircleCI, one of Snyk's esteemed partners. So thank you so much for joining. You have a background in software development, architecture, and consulting. You've been a CTO, an entrepreneur. You like to focus on aligning businesses' challenges with innovative technologies. You were founder of and CTO of Vamp.io at the very beginning of the DevOps movement, and you created your own music label. Did you?
Yeah. Actually, with
Right.
my Fam.io co-founder, who's now the CTO or former CTO of Checkly, which is also a very cool synthetic testing tool. But yeah, we had a record label.
Yeah, fantastic. And you know what, folks in the chat? What's even crazier now, for the best part, is that Brett actually also was in the music business. You had your own guitar building company at some point, did you?
Yes, I did. I built guitars for several years. Sold them all over the place. They're
Oh
all
my.
around the world. None from South Africa. None went to South Africa though. So that's sad.
Yeah.
But I
Oh,
do have
too
them in
bad. Yeah.
Australia. I do have some in
Yeah.
Australia, which is pretty south. So
Yeah, that's really cool. We see people joining from London, from South Africa, California, Spain, Dallas, Texas. So yeah, bunch of places where you might have or might not have sold guitars. Well, folks, you make my life look so dull. Well, anyways, I'm glad to have you here. Thank you again for joining. Let's get it started. I have a first question for you, folks. It's kind of a candid one, but we'll use that to set some context. Okay. Can we just take some time to, define what a pipeline is, or CI/CD? Maybe list some of the how you should build your SDLC around it, and maybe list some of the key benefits. Olaf, you're the experts here. Would you like to have
Yeah.
a quick go?
Yeah, of course, I used machine learning in LLM to get an answer on this. So I asked ChatGPT, and I was five questioning the system, and it told me this. Listen, CI/CD pipeline is an automated process that builds, tests, and deploys code every time changes are made. So software can be delivered faster, more reliably, and with less manual effort. I think
Hmm.
it's not hallucinating too much here.
Yeah, that's a
It
good
makes
thing.
sense. Yeah. I think in the early days of CI/CD, obviously we had cruise control. I think that was developed at ThoughtWorks. I'm
Hmm.
not sure. And then Jenkins came along, but it was really focused on the building, right? The automating
Hmm.
of the building. But these days, I think CI/CD is almost like an automation engine. It's
It is.
basically allowing you to orchestrate automation of things like testing, scanning, building, deploying, releasing, and whatever AI will bring to the table in the future. So I would say it's automation pipelines, orchestration of automation.
yeah, the CI/CD is not the term it used to be. It's just a small piece of what we do now. The bigger push, like at our company, and I'm going to do a talk on this at some point, is platform engineering, is what we call it. And basically, you end up with a bunch of pipelines. We're not talking about just like one or two pipelines. You got tons of pipelines. And the great thing about new pipelines is you still get to keep up with the old pipelines. You can't ever shut anything off. So the pipelines just keep growing and they get all over the place. But you end up with a platform, right? And then you have the problem of onboarding, right? Your developers. So you want to be able to make it easy for the developers to onboard into the pipelines, but it's really a platform. And then you end up with an internal developer platform. And then they confabulate the terms IDP, and then you realize there's an internal developer portal that lets them get into the internal developer platform.
Reminds me
That
of the
said,
scenario for Inception, the movie, you know?
yeah. And so then you end up with a pile of pipelines, and they could be Jenkins. I mean, we've got a mixture of Jenkins, and we've recently moved to GitHub, and so we have GitHub Actions, and they're running on on-prem runners, and they do a lot more than just build the software, right? They go out and they kick off tests after the software's built. They do a bunch of other stuff, and I'm not going to get into too far into it because then I'll be answering questions Gerald's going to ask us later.
Yeah. We got more coming in, but yeah, to your point, obviously, I think that it's safe to say that all of the environments we've been working with have grown more and more complex, numerous and complex over time, and things we're doing today basically have nothing to do in terms of complexity as what it was like only just a couple of years ago. So let's actually move on to the security part of this discussion, and maybe start with a quick poll for the audience. Feel free again, folks in the chat, to react or drop us a line. Would love to hear about how far advanced you are with automating security checkpoints in your pipeline. But yeah, question for my guest here on the show. Why should we embed security checkpoints in our pipelines, and how to best do it? In other words, why should we automate security? What are the benefits of doing it? What are the risks of not doing it? And obviously, what are you checking for? What are the key things you need to keep in check when you embed those tests?
So I'll start. So why would you embed security checkpoints in your pipelines? Well, because it's a really good idea. Okay. What we've done is that we've done a whole thing where we're trying to shift as much security left as we can, but we're trying to automate as much to the right. And so what you don't want is you don't want a bunch of your developers having to go out and manually run their scans, right? Because then they're tied up running scans and not writing code. And I've never met a developer that wants to run scans. They want to write code, right? That's all they want to do. And so what we've been working towards is I'm trying to get to a point where my developers pull code, hack, and push code, and then all the little robots scatter and do things. And some of the things they do their SAST scan, right? We do an SCA scan for them in the pull request, right? So these are before they even get out to the real world. And then if you shift far enough left, like we've got Sneak IDE plugins, so theoretically, you could sit right at your desk and do your security scans before you even push your PR. They don't, but they should. Developers, right? They just want to push their code. They're like, I don't, I'm not worried about it. Anyway, so then what you want to do is that as your stuff's going, as your units are going through the pipe, you want to make sure that you run your scans for your compliance reasons, right? And you want to have artifacts from those scans so that you know that you have run those scans before that piece of software or unit goes out to the public, right? And then the SAST and the SCA are like really important. But the other one that's important is linters, like Git leaks and things that keep bad stuff out of your repositories. And you want to run those as well in your CI early. And then eventually you're going to run your OCI scans on your Docker images if that's what you're building, right? So you're going to have a whole bunch of scans run. You should run them all through your pipeline. And I'll let Olaf take over and see if I can get
Thanks so much for sharing, Brett. I took the liberty of putting this slide here on the screen. We got some question on the chat, one from Connor that I'm going to share here. What is considered automated security checkpoints? And I think you just insert that, Brett. It's definitely not just code. It's so much more than that. Olaf, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No worries. No, I just had. I can hear my voice. I'm not sure if that's also.
Oh, that's okay now.
Okay. I have two words: fail fast. That's basically, in essence, what you try to do, right? You try to detect possible issues as soon as possible. So Brett was also mentioning like doing things on developer machines, the earlier you can kind of figure out that things might become a little bit icky or risky, the better, effectively. So yeah, and every kind of handover point in your pipelines, you want to make sure that you scan or test or do anything that even if it's not on purpose, yeah, it's like Brett also said, developers like to code. It's not that people come to work every day to screw up, right? To make mistakes, but they're basically focusing on what they like, what they love, what they do well. So anything that we can do to help them, to put guardrails in place, to basically alert people, like, did you check this? And we already checked for you, right? And maybe thing is drifting, or you introduce the dependency which is not the right dependency, and take a look, or we even fix it for you, right? That's I think in a nutshell what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, 100%. Sorry, Brad, before you react to that, I just wanted to share with the audience here on the show a cheat sheet, very interesting one, that was created by OWASP. You've all heard about OWASP and their great work, I guess. At this stage, they build this great cheat sheet on CI/CD security. I would encourage any of you with any questions to visit that, and a lot of great learnings, basics and advanced learnings here from them. So feel free to, visit that. Yeah. I'm not sure if you were about to react to Olaf's.
Well, I was gonna test my microphone, see if it's a little bit louder now.
Yeah.
See if everybody can hear me better. I hope everybody can hear me a little bit better. If I need to turn it up again, just pop into the chat. Tell me I need to turn it up some more.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, the automated checks are really important, but the automated gating is important as well, right? We have a concept of promotion, right? So you build your unit at this lowest level, and we run a set of tests against it. We run all the scans and all the security at it, and then once it's past all that stuff, it gets promoted up to the next level. And then at some point before it goes out to the customer, you've got this checklist, right, of gates. And you have to go through and say, yes, we did this. Yes, we did this. Yes, we did this. Yes, we did this. Yes, we did this before that unit can go out. That's only kind of part of it. The other thing that we should talk about at some point is you actually have to secure your pipeline. And so to secure the pipeline, you build the pipeline with the pipeline, and all the pieces of the pipeline go through the same security checks that your product goes through. And this is how you protect yourself from, I compiled this on my desktop and pushed it into the infrastructure, and we're running on production on it now. No, don't do that. Use your pipeline to build your pipeline, and then you ensure the same type of compliance that you're worried about for your customer, right? Because like for me, we're in the US, so we've got the executive order 14028, we've got NIST guidelines, then we've got the GDPR stuff, we got DORA, and then Australia's got their own one coming out. And so we've got all these regulations we have to meet for our customers. And if you put all that into your pipeline, all those checks and all that stuff in your pipeline, you might as well build your pipeline with your pipeline so that your pipeline meets those regulations.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point that you're making, Brett. What we're actually seeing, and I think, Gerald, you already mentioned, like the complexity has kind of increased very much. I think the same things that we were introducing with CI/CD to make the quality of software development better, we are also now introducing to basically manage the supply chain, which is it's the factory line, right? How you develop and make sure that your QA is up to par. All these things are basically there, but a level up. So like debugging the pipeline, making sure it's compliant. At CircleCI, we are FedRAMP and SOC 2, and I don't know how much regulated compliance things we need to be. So these things trickle down into the product and the platform also. So the users of the pipelines can also make use of those features and those engines. So yeah, it's just like we did with software, like the professionalism we introduced to create better software at a higher rate is now also being added to the pipelines, basically the DevOps automation pipelines. And it should, because otherwise, like Brett says, you only need like one person injecting something in your pipeline, and
Yep.
By the way, By the way, just question. We didn't mention that while we were preparing this call, but I would be curious, Brett. I know your pipeline is very much custom built, a little bit like your guitars or motorcycles, if you will. I know you built a bunch of automations on top of your existing pipeline, and my question to you would be. And by the way, I'm not even sure that those, automated gating you were mentioning before is something that you custom built or not. But my question, I guess so.
You've seen it.
My question to you would be, who has ownership of the pipeline in your organization? Because your title says software developer. I know you care a lot about security, and is there a platform engineering team who has ownership? How does it work?
So we've got, so I created most of not created, it's my fault, a lot of the pipeline. And I was the one who built the insecure pipeline out with the help of many folks. And then I was the one who had to go secure it because it was my fault. And so now we have a executive order compliant dish pipeline, but we've got a whole division. So we're called the SDE division, software deployment engineers or development engineers, something like that. Anyway, basically me and my boss, and there's a small core of us that came over from another company called RPath, and we're basically like the owners of the pipeline. But there's a lot of people working on this pipeline. And what I've done is that every time I've gone and came up with an idea, like when I started working on the gating and the receipting and the event-driven piece of this pipeline, there wasn't anything off the shelf I could go grab, right?
Okay.
Our friends at Tecton there hadn't finished their chains, tectonic chains, and like the Argo guys hadn't finished their event system yet. They was still way too nascent, and I needed something that runs 24/7 and is bulletproof, and I wanted this audit trail. So we built out this event-driven system that's all built in-house that uses Kafka, and it makes events every time something happens. So going back to the security part, where we've got all of this, we've got proof that we ran this security stuff. We ran the security scans, that we ran our linters. We have proof of them because we create an event every time that happens by creating a receipt that gets stored in the database that I can go look up later that's tied to the unit we produced, right? And so you tie all that stuff together, right? And then you find out that you paid no attention to observability and you can't find anything. So then you spend a couple of months working on observability, which is what we did. But then you end up where we are now, where we've got this big in-house homegrown thing, which, by the way, we rewrote and open sourced. I'm talking about that next week at Open Source Summit, the CDCon. But you end up with this big in-house hairball, and now we're trying to figure out how to make the pipeline less complex, right? Because the more complex the pipeline is, the more security holes you have, the more chance you have for security problems to show up. I know you got something for this, Olaf.
Okay. Thanks a lot for sharing. I saw some great questions in the chat. Just wanted to acknowledge that we're definitely taking advantage of being live to answer any upcoming questions. So we have a great question from Connor and another one for Abdul, from Abdul. And let's start with Connor's question here. And Abdul, if you don't mind, we'll put a pin on your question and answer that a little bit later, because we're going to transition to the AI part of the show right after that. But here's Connor's question here. Would an on-premise air-gapped running pipeline be considered insecure? If so, why? My guess is it depends on how it was built, but you go. Let
me jump in on this.
Yeah.
I think not per se. I mean, it's just like I think it's very much depending on how your on-premise infrastructure is secured, yes or no, and also the handovers, right? How does it get there, and how is it kind of like pulled away again into the next stage? So I would say, of course, you need to take common precautions that not an actor that you don't want there can be on your on-prem infrastructure, firewalling, VPNing, I don't know, everything that you need to do there. But let's assume it's totally open, the thing is running. Then it makes a ton of sense to basically have at the handover stages the right amount of scanning and testing, because that basically allows you to, even if you have like insecure steps in between, not on purpose, but maybe by accident. Let's say you build something on-prem on the infrastructure, and then it's pushed to an S3 bucket or a container registry. But the next step in your automation pipelines, in your CI/CD system, is basically first scanning your SBOM, or scanning the insides of the container before even doing something with this thing. And then you kind of secure all the steps, and then it's a little bit less risky to introduce on-prem things.
Okay.
So we talk about hermetic builds, and if you go and look at the Salsa spec, you start to talk about what steps you should go through before you throw stuff into the build system, right? And so you could have an air-gapped on-prem pipeline, but if you're putting bad groceries in, you're making bad dinners, right? And so the idea here is that everything that goes into the pipeline gets put somewhere, scanned and vetted, right? To Olaf's point, you make an SBOM of a container, you pull off a docker.io, and you don't pull the image from Docker every time. You take the image, you bring it in-house, you scan it, you vet it, you make an SBOM for it, you stick it in some sort of storage, like, on-prem registries, right? And I'm not going to give anybody free advertising, but you know what I'm talking about. And then you, in your build system, you only pull from that source, right? And then there's another concept of like a repository firewall. So like if you are pulling things from the outside world, no, you're not air-gapped anymore, right? So if you're pip installing stuff, you're go build stuff, you're pulling stuff through the internet, you need to proxy those through some sort of security feature, right? Again, no free advertising here, but we do that, right? You don't pull directly from PyPy. You pull through a proxy that has security stuff on it that runs the security checks all the time. And then the stuff that you're going to embed in your product, that lives in that same repository, and it's scanned on a regular basis, because guess what? CVEs are not static, all right? They show up whenever, right? And you could have it, you could pull it, scan it, and stick it in your repository, and it was fine that day. And then tomorrow it could have a 0 day against it. So you need to scan it on a regular basis. And then we get back into observability, who's checking these scans. And so, yeah, the air-gapped is a cool thing, and as long as you make sure that the parts going in, right, have been vetted, and then you need like provenance on those things, right?
I've got 2 words again for this: zero trust.
Yes.
Basically, if you approach it from that perspective, I think, you should be able to handle these scenarios correctly.
Okay. Quick follow-up question. I want to make sure we are not letting any question unanswered, but let's make a quick answer on that part and move on to the AI part of the chat. But yeah,
running and building a container is not the best thing. I mean, it's not going to save you, right? The thing I always say is keep your curl pipe bash out of my pipeline. Well, guess what? Developers will write curl pipe bash in a Docker file faster than they will eat a donut. Okay, it is just as quick as they can. They will curl pipe bash something off the internet. So yeah, that's my comment on that. Yes, containerize everything. No, containers don't save you.
Okay, good.
There's just different ways of approaching the same problem, right?
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks a lot for this fast and clear answer. I'd like to move on to the part of this discussion where we discuss the impact of AI on our pipelines. And again, we saw Abdul's question that we're going to address a little bit later on. But I would like to start with, what do you think the impact of I would say the current state of AI adoption is on our pipelines? Let's start with AI powered, coding assistance, just basic coding assistance, right? Everyone uses tools like, I don't know, Copilot, whatever you name them. There's a bunch of them to write code now, which means we're shipping code 5x, 10x faster than before, and you have much more code trying to hit your pipeline much faster. What's the impact, and how do you react to that? How do you adapt to that? Is there any good practices to keep in mind?
I was at Lead Dev London a few days ago, and there was a talk where somebody was talking about that within not naming a search engine company, they were ramping up for a 10 times increase in throughput volume, everything, their infrastructure tooling, because of the, like you say, Copilot, whatever generative tools are creating tons of code, tests, anything, and that volume increase, that's insane, right? And yeah, how to handle it, because it's a sound to noise ratio that you need to kind of work with, because right now there's still a lot of noise. How do you detect the sound in the noise? So I think from a CI/CD perspective, we need to be much smarter with the data that we can pull out from systems, like what tests to run in what order, fail fast, analyzing historical data, commit data, and seeing, okay, if this part of the code is being touched, then we can ignore all of these areas, these tests, only run this one, and then with a P99 or P90, we can know that the rest we can ignore if this test fails, right? Of course, we had like more static tools in the past to do these things, like what tests are aligned to what piece of the code. But now with machine learning, we can also make much better informed decisions, and we need to, because of this. It's like a flooding of the system, and the moment the system is basically blocked or stopped or whatever, then your factory shuts down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I would jump in there as well and say that you ruined one of the really good points I was going to make later in the show.
Sorry.
No, please go ahead. Let's repeat stuff. Education is repeating.
So yeah, in 2019, when I was first pitching my event-driven system, one of the things I said is we're going to have so much more data that we'll be able to use machine learning against the data to do predictive test selection, right? And then the next thing you want to do is predictive deployment failures, right? I know that every time, I've deployed 30,000 times, and then 10,000 failed, and the 10,000 that failed was because every time somebody touched this one piece of code, it broke something, right? And then we know that piece of code is dangerous. So you're using the AI to evaluate that type of stuff, right? We're an analytics company. We could run analytics on it, but we also are an AI and a machine learning company, so we can do that as well. And that's where you start to go with your AI. But what we don't want is like the crypto bro problem, where you're trying to solve everything with blockchain. Okay, look, stop. All right, there's some places where it is better for you to pay down your tech debt than it is to go stick AI in your pipeline, right? Yeah. Let's be clear, right? Use AI responsibly. One of the things that I'm definitely starting to look into, because we're not really using AI in our pipeline yet. The places I want to start using AI in the pipeline are for security evaluations, right? Like when I run my security scans, I want to get AI to swing in and take a look at that scan and then tell me, hey, this thing's okay. It's got all medium and lows. and maybe do a reachability analysis, right? Because Sneak's starting to work on those type of things. And then we go, okay, well then this isn't really a threat. We can deprioritize that. And then we go, look, I only changed the README. Why are we running the thousands of unit tests on this thing, right? Because you developers are writing more unit tests with Copilot, right? Yeah. Liars. But you should be writing more unit tests, because that's something that the LLMs are good at, is writing, helping you write unit tests. But anyway, so there's places to use the AI in the pipeline, and you should be careful not to, like I said, blockchain this thing where you're just trying to use the technology to use the tech.
No, it needs to have a purpose. And I think what's interesting, what you're also mentioning, in the past we had like deterministic tests, right? It was a 0 or it was 1, true or false. But now we have non-deterministic results. Like if you have like an LLM or something can generate different responses or answers in the test. So what we see and have in CircleCI, for example, we have like an eval, which uses an LLM to evaluate an LLM output. So basically, it tells you this result is good enough. We think like it fits kind of like what we try to achieve here, and that's, I think there's no way around when you have like non-deterministic outcomes, that you need some kind of system that kind of feels if it's hot or cold, and where the cutoff point is. But it's interesting times.
Yeah.
And
AI boat racing is what you're describing, Olaf. AI boat racing.
Yeah. I mean, we're jumping the gun a little bit on the topics we wanted to discuss later on the show, but yeah, I'm glad we're discussing that, because I mean, to your points, we're far from, we're only just touching the surface on the way we can use and leverage our AI tomorrow, to enhance our pipelines. I would like us just to step back for a second and get back to, today, just today. Today, you have your engineering team using coding assistants to ship code into your pipeline and do that much faster, right? We all know that the data the models are trained on is probably not always the best quality, which means that the code that is shipped to your pipeline is also not the best quality. What do you need to have in place to face this kind of situation? I mean, in terms of basic maturity of your security checkpoints, are there any key elements, any key checks that you need to make sure you have in place for just today's world of developers leveraging LLMs to write code and ship faster?
So code is code, right? So we've touched on the speed thing. That's real. The code that the AI is helping you write is not marginally better than the code you would write without the AI, in my opinion. Maybe in some cases it is, but in general, that's code. Those LLMs, most of them are trained on public code, and I've seen the public code, and it's not better than my code. It's bad. And it's like you've got a junior assistant, not a senior developer helping you, right? You've got interns. The AI code right now is kind of like interns and not seniors. Now, I'm assuming as we go down, the path, we'll get a better curated base that, really starts to improve code. So like right now, you treat it like code, right? It's, you run your SAST, you run your linters, and then you swing in and have 2 humans review it before you merge it in the main, right? The 2 human thing is something I love. I got that from the first iteration of the salsa spec, and I was very upset when they pulled it back out. I can't wait to get it back in. But we do that. We have, you have to have 2 humans review the code before it gets merged, and it can't be you, right? So the human in the loop thing, I'm probably jumping the gun again on you, but
no, I mean, it's,
you need humans in the loop because non-deterministic gremlins will run amok, right? And over reliance will kill us all. It'll be what kills us all, right? Because you'll just start letting the AI write the code and the AI do the review, right? And then we get into that AI boat race we were talking about, Olaf. And that's a dangerous place. So.
Yeah, and I think also the fail fast thing becomes even more important here, and there's like mechanisms like merge queues, for example. If you like push everything to your main branch and then need to run all the expensive pipelines every time that a Copilot suggested they fix the thing. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with this Reddit post that somebody posted a few weeks ago where he said like, okay, my new hobby is watching Microsoft employees struggle with their Copilot commits, where it says like basically Copilot fix this issue. It's fixed. And then no, it's not fixed. Fix it. It's fixed. You're right. It's fixed now. No, it's not fixed. And then they start raging, like remove all the tests, start over again. But I think just making sure that even maybe on a developer machine or somewhere like very early on, very cheaply, start testing and merging against a development branch, making sure that you only run the expensive stuff later on when you're really totally right. And that's where I totally agree with you, Brett. The human in the loop should make sure that at some point it's good enough to kind of proceed to the next stage.
Right.
100%. I just wanted to poll the audience at this stage because we're talking about usage of AI in the SDLC. I just wanted to know, for the folks watching us, how far advanced you are. Feel free to drop us a line and tell us how you're using AI. Are you basically just leveraging coding assistance as we already do? Are you already leveraging external models maybe to enhance your apps? Are you starting to experiment with agentic powered interactions in the SDLC? Just let us know.
So Gerald, we got a question that I'd like to chime in on. It's from
the one
Florian M. Yeah. So I can't join the chat to post it, but the framework I started with was Salsa, which is SLSA. You can Google it; it'll come right up. And that's the one I started with. The original 0.1 version was released by Google about the same time the executive order was released. I think it was like June, and they've taken a step back on Salsa for 1.0 because they felt like the original model was unachievable. But Google uses the original model internally, and so it is achievable. It just takes a lot of work to get there. But that was the first framework we used. But there's also the NIST 81.0 for that you can use. There is the MITRE attack framework is really good. You should check into the MITRE attack tools. They've got some amazing tools for AI to vet your pipeline against that. And I saw a comment earlier about threat modeling. Threat model your pipeline. Threat model your pipeline now. You know why? Because you scare yourself to death. One of the things we did before we started down the EO 14028 attestation work on our pipeline is that me and one of my colleagues who knows way too much about our systems, we sat down in chat and started talking about how we could get malicious content into the pipeline and out the door.
Very interesting.
Right? And it turned into a large article I ended up writing that scared the living daylights out of me, thinking that like anybody could get stuff jammed into the pipeline, even though we only had one door into the build system. Right? Once it got out, we were like, well, it's fine. Nobody can touch it, right? Robots are moving the stuff up through the pipe. No. It was bad. And we're in a much better place now, right? With zero trust and, there's off on everything. The guy who built the pipeline didn't put off on anything, So he's still employed. He's talking. Don't know how. So okay, what's the next one?
Yeah, no, I guess that your so let me remove that one as well. I guess that your answer to Abdul's question would be you still have to use threat modeling, but keep a human in the loop to do this threat modeling as well. The guys who know the stuff inside out needs to be involved, not just don't leave it to
Right.
I would even add to this, like, I think we especially in this age of AI, also jumping on Adele's question, we should do it the old way, which is not super old, but even more, because we need to counterbalance all that non-deterministic generated stuff with like static and dynamic, the proven technology. And of course, you can extend it with new kind of tools that detect drift or understand models, and kind of can dive in and maybe even at some point in time do the LLM evaluation. But it's never a black and white. It's not like throw everything out and then introduce all these new things. A lot of it is still black box, and it's still a lot of it is still like, I don't know why it gave these results, but because last time it did something else, and it's fine. I mean, it's fine to generate code or generate a piece of copy, but the moment your business is depending on this, and it possibly could hit production, I don't know if you want to have the black box do the things that it can do.
Yeah, I don't like black boxes, and black boxes get security people fired. And to the comment before, I locked the door. It had 2 padlocks on it and a lock and the key, and there was no walls on either side. You just walk around the door, So we had to build the walls around so that there really was a locked door. It's happened before.
Yeah, speaking of black boxes, I actually wanted to move to the last part of our discussion. Time is flying.
It's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
This is the part I've been waiting for. I wish we'd have gotten to it.
Yeah. No, that's okay. Let's talk a little bit about, let's say, tomorrow, right? Because people are experimenting with it, but I don't think it's actually used in production environment in a mainstream way. We all know that AI native software development is the next phase of our evolution, which includes things like training our own models and includes as well agentic powered interactions within the SDLC. I wanted to stop on the agents by themselves, right, for a second. What does it mean for your pipeline when you have autonomous agents talking to each other and sending out information or whatever within your pipeline? What does it mean in terms of, authentication, permission, access control, things like that? How do you see that going?
Yeah, excessive agency is what's going to get us with the agentic stuff, right? So you've got this non-deterministic gremlin in your pipeline and you give it too much power. If you give it the power to delete, guess what it's probably going to do? It's going to delete something, right? And now you've got 2 of these things talking to each other that might have excessive agency, right? And then this one tells this one to delete something. This one's like, no, you delete it first. And then they delete both of them. And then poof, right? So the
inception.
So the chance of your pipeline spiraling out of control is increased, exponentially, because you have these non-deterministic things that hallucinate. It's called confabulation, and it's when they're insistent that they are right, and it is a complete not truth. And so we've got to work on getting that out before we're going to be able to move to the future of agentic AI running your whole pipeline. But I don't think we should be totally afraid of it. There are things the agentic AI can do for you without being prompted, right? And so, like, it could review logs, and if it sees an error, it could raise a flag. It could go through your data logs automatically and go, here's the reason why that deployment failed. So there are good uses for it. Now, there's danger, right? Excessive agency, confabulation. There's at least with agents, you don't have prompt injection, right? But you could theoretically have another agent do something.
Yeah, you could have plenty of other stuff. I don't know. Let's talk about the models, for example. You can have data poisoning for the models. There's a bunch of other vectors, right?
Yeah, I would say that separation of concerns is kind of like the approach here. Just like you with your API, you make sure that the roles that you allow write or actionable things or deletes have need to have certain rights and levels in the system. And of course, with CircleCI, we also have MCP server tools these days, as everybody has. But I really believe that the main value, especially for systems like ours that can kind of hit production or influence production, it's much more about the natural language interface, so people can start talking to systems, which is super valuable, of course. When I started in IT, I have a background very long time ago. There was expert systems, and you had decision trees. But the promise, like talking to an expert system, that's kind of delivered, I think, with LLMs. But I think the main thing here is that you can talk to the system and query the system. Let it tell you things instead of giving it actions or having an agent giving it actions. It's more like, tell me what my slowest pipeline is. Why was it slow? Can you compare it to my fastest pipeline? Can you tell me what features are in the platform that were introduced in the last 3 months that can help me to optimize the pipeline? So basically, it's an expert system that you can talk to in a natural language, and it can tell you and inform you and help you to get better at your work. So you are still the human in the loop, and the expert system basically helps you to get better at your job. Because when shit hits the fan, nobody will start asking an agent. They will always walk to you and say, okay, well, what happened? Why is it bad now? And then you're like, I don't know, the agent did something. That's not a good answer.
No, I mean, I really like how you see the positive way of leveraging AI to improve your processes here. Any reaction from you, Brett? How do you see our pipelines evolving in the future?
So I definitely would like to see the AI used for the observability pieces. I feel like the amount of data we pop out of these pipelines these days has gotten to the point where it's not ingestible by a human, and not reliably ingestible by a human. And so, to Olaf's point, if you've got your AI helping you with, hey, like we ran into something recently where our SBOMs generation for certain projects was taking forever, right? And nobody knew, and we had to go scrolling through logs. And if you had, the AI say, well, how come our SBOMs are taking so long? And the AI goes, hey, look, this is where I found it in the log where it's doing this thing that it doesn't need to do. And then so I always say, get it working first, then optimize, right? So our pipeline is working. It's been working for years, and it keeps growing organically, which is another different problem. But the thing we're trying to do now is slim it down so that we have less, sprawl. But the other thing we want to do is optimize it, right? And one of the things that goes on is like we've got this container that we use to do all the building, and the container's big, and we haven't been able to cache it because things keep breaking when we start caching it. And we're still working through that. But if you could ask the AI, well, how could I, speed this up? And the AI comes back and says, well, you should probably cache that image, you knucklehead. I mean, right? It's 3 gig. What are you doing? That's what I really need. I need like some sort of Monty Python type insult thing from my AI to make me feel like it's a normal day at work. But
you can customize it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go train my model on the Holy Grail and the whole Flying Circus series, and then we'll come back and then we'll teach it the actual IT part, and then we'll merge them together. It'll be freaking fabulous.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll let Olaf. We're getting close to time, so I'll let Olaf. Got anything else?
Yeah, no, I think you're totally right. There's an insane amount of data that we can distill from all our systems, and the volume will only increase like 10 times. I don't even want to think about it, to be honest,
right?
Because there's already that much. And like you say, finding patterns, anomalies, outliers, whatever, that's the power of machine learning. That's where they can really shine. and then basically pointing you in the right direction. Say, okay, I see some kind of thing changing, a trend break. Did you, for example, right sizing? In CircleCI, we have usage API. You can get all the granular data from all the pipelines and jobs that you're running. That's a really big ton of data to kind of look through this thing and right size your build agents and your runners, and to find the spots where you can optimize. That's really like an effort, and it can be done, of course, but I think it can be done much easier and much more efficient by leveraging machine learning in these areas.
100%.
So, yeah.
So if we turn this back to security again, the other thing we can do, we've got all this data, all these logs coming out, and it's got a pattern to it, right? Like a ebb and flow to the things on the weekly, what goes on, right? You know, every Monday night we run a bunch of nightly builds, the system's up here. And then on Tuesday night, it's down here because it's not. And then what you do is that we could use the AI to just watch those patterns and look for anomalies, right? And when you see a spike, that's a cause for concern, and humans should go check out that spike. And, you know, we don't really, we have Grafana, we have Prometheus, we kind of have this, but again, humans aren't on all the time, right? And so AI doesn't get tired. It may be stupid, but it doesn't get tired, right?
Maybe there's a correlation between those two.
maybe it needs to sleep more, but you know, let the robots do the work, right?
Yeah, no, I like it.
And then send in the humans as the task force, right? You know, special ops when you see something that needs to be, you know, routed out, right? So those are some things that I think about with my pipelines.
I you know what I like about that? It's that it's very hands-on and actionable. It's not like we're looking at the future and maybe at some point we're going to get self-healing pipelines or whatever, you know. We're not talking about, well, it might happen sometime. We know probably soon enough we'll have platforms helping us doing some you know, proactive remediation for vulnerabilities or policy enforcement, right? But right now, right now, we got what it takes to analyze data, analyze patterns, recognize anything that's, you know, stands out, and send an alert. That's something we can action right away. So I like that very much. We're actually close to the end of this this talk, so time for me to wrap up. I wanted to obviously thank you folks so much for joining us, Brett and Olaf. It was a pleasure having you on this chat. I really enjoyed it. For everyone watching us on YouTube and in the chat, please, let us know what kind of topics you'd like to hear about for the next course. Drop us a line in the chat or join us on Discord and give us a shout. We are happy to, you know, schedule the next sessions according to your needs. And B, please give us a grade, a good one, please. If you had to rate this session, feel free to do that. You know, from 1 to 5. We're always looking for feedback and trying to make things better.
Yeah,
Brett, Olaf.
Yes, I want to be back. So you guys rate this well. Right? I mean, I don't need Gerald to kick me to the curb and replace me with some AI assistant. All right, I gotta have something to do.
Thank you again so much for joining. Really appreciate your time, your expertise. We learned a ton of things today. We got through the basics of CI/CD implementation, basics of security checks. We got to see how the current state of AI adoption already impacts our pipelines. We got to see what the future looks like and give some very actionable pieces of advice to everyone watching us. So thank you so much. For everyone watching us, again, let me do a shameless plug here. Join us, sneak.io/community. That's where DevSecOps live. That's where you can join us. You can join our Discord or any of our local chapters. Thanks again, everyone. I'm looking forward to our next session. And until then, take good care of yourselves. Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you guys. Bye.